On Tuesday, the USDA will release its first projections of net farm income for 2016. The agency's numbers in November estimated 2015 net farm income at nearly $56 billion, a 38% drop from the previous year. Earlier this week, we talked with Nebraska Extension Ag Law Specialist Dave Aiken about what can happen when producers don't bring in enough money to cover their operating loan. Dave says a 1985 Nebraska Supreme Court case provides an example of what could happen when a lender cuts off operating credit but doesn't foreclose. We talked with Dave Thursday and started by discussing financial environments that could lead to this situation.
Crop prices have come down from, they were really good not too many years ago, but now they're kind of back to where they were before, and some producers find themselves in a financial crunch, and they may be in a bad enough shape to where they get cut off on their operating loan.
Now, what happens if their operating loan gets cut off?
Well, it depends whether the lender goes into foreclosure or not, and if they do go into foreclosure, then the producer needs to get legal help right away.
If they don't go into foreclosure, what are the avenues for options?
They're going to be looking at trying to get credit from their suppliers, the seed dealer, the fuel dealer, the chemical dealer, and so forth. Sometimes they may even go to family members to get some help.
Explain how that scenario would work.
Well, basically, the important point is that when this happens, the old operating lender is still probably going to have the rights to any new crop that is grown. And so the new creditors may be left out in the cold, and that's what you want to avoid.
So this is where the loan subordination comes in.
That's right.
What does that mean?
Well, basically, for the operating loan in general, I'm the producer, I borrow the money, I pay for everything up front, I harvest the crop, I pay off the loan, and everything's good. But in this situation, I can't pay off the loan, so I'm cut off, and so I have to go try to find the new lenders, and that's where you need the subordination agreement to try to make that go.
Now, there is an example of this in the past. Describe how that went.
That's right. This is the farmer got cut off. He owed the bank over $100,000. They did not foreclose, but they cut off his loans. His brother-in-law stepped in and said, "I'll loan you the money for the new crop, but we need to sit down with the bank and make sure that we understand what happens when that gets harvested." And in that case, the brother-in-law loaned $46,000, and they agreed that the local bank would get the first $20,000 from the new crop, and if they had not negotiated that agreement, the bank would have gotten everything from the new crop, not just the $20,000.
The problem there was that the crop prices weren't high enough to pay back everything at that time, right?
That's right. Everybody ended up taking a loss on that.
How does it work for the suppliers, the input suppliers?
Well, it's the same type of deal. You need to get the agreement with the old lender about, when we harvest that new crop, who gets paid first and how much, and how we're going to split this up. How
easy are these subordination agreements to draw up?
They are really difficult because unless there's a miracle, and crop and corn goes back up to $7 or something like that, there's not going to be enough money to get everybody paid. So everybody is going to have to get less than full recovery, and it's really important that the new operating lenders understand that going in, because if they don't, they just need to understand that.
How do you recommend then producers who could potentially be in this kind of problem go about the process?
Well, for sure, if you can come to an agreement, get it in writing. An attorney can help out here, but it's a really tough deal, a tough conversation to have.
Any sources of information where people can go to find more resources?
You bet. The Nebraska Farm Hotline is a great place to go. They can help with legal, financial, and emotional counseling. The Department of Ag has the Farm Mediation Program. That can also be a big help here. And then finally, Legal Aid Nebraska can be there to help on the legal side. Describe what the mediation would do. Well, in mediation, and we saw a lot of this back in the 80s when we went through this type of deal before, their neutral third party, they sit down and try to come up with a compromise that avoids foreclosure and bankruptcy, and they could help in this type of deal when they're trying to figure out how do we split this new crop proceeds among a lot of people.
Okay, finally, Dave, is this situation any different for Farm Service Agency borrowers?
Yes, they have a very precise and borrower-friendly process laid out. And so you just, if you get this kind of paperwork from Farm Services, they'll tell you what to do, and you just make sure you meet the deadlines.
On the Market Journal website, you can find links to Legal Aid of Nebraska, the Farm Mediation Service, and the Nebraska Ag Solutions Negotiations Program. You can read more about mediation in next month's Nebraska Farmer. This month's issue contains a recent article from Dave on losing operating credit.